when Rand, Matt, and Perrin are hanging out at like that little pub bar and the guy's like
Hmm.
drawing pictures of Matt with the horn. There's a moment when Rand leans in to look at what the artist has made, and it is literally his pay-per-view Vegas fight night above the skies of foam. And I was like,
Yes.
yes, yes, I finally get it. And then
Sky battle. Sky battle.
Sky Battle was there, and I love it. And then one other like really small thing that I'd never realized is this season's the first time we see an Aes Sedai wear an actual shawl.
Yes. Yes. In the flashback.
Yes.
Hello and welcome back to the channel. Amber here, back again with Laura, and we are on our post season 3 episode that was promised. The episode that was promised. But there has been kind of a changing thing happening. Laura's no longer a no book reader.
I am an official book reader now. But also
Yeah.
like because of where I'm at, it's not exactly like the most impressive show of knowledge.
Well, you've gone through, this will be your 4th book because you started with New Spring.
Yeah, I would like to add that I fully stand behind starting at New Spring.
I think for anyone who has watched the show, New Spring is where it's at. I think that's hands down. If you've watched even season 1 and 2 and not even 3, I would still say start with New Spring. But especially after this season with everything that happens between Swan
Definitely.
and Moiraine.
I love New Spring. So far, it's been my favorite book. I love it.
I feel bad because I'm constantly hyping New Spring up, and I know some people are kind of hit or miss with it, but I think it adds so much really nice groundwork for getting to know the motivations of these, I guess, 3 characters, namely Moiraine, Swan, and Lan. And I think, although I'm a big Moiraine and Swan fan, Lan does not get a lot of POVs in the main series, in the main book series. Going back to New Spring, then it's like, okay, now you get to really see what's going on in his head and in his mind and his thoughts about everything, and this big question of oaths and duty and where he stands and all of it. It's so enjoyable.
Definitely. You know, I even like some of the more like, I guess you would call them mundane world building portions. I had a good time when they went dress shopping. I loved it. I loved it. I think I loved all the chapters. When I was reading it, it was really exciting for me because like as somebody coming to it from the show, I already have this like skeletal knowledge of what's like the structure is.
Mm-hmm.
But I was, already in the know. I understood the concepts that were being talked about. And I think what you were talking about, like seeing Lan as a person before Moiraine was one of the best parts of that book.
That opening, is it the epilogue? No, it's chapter 1, the hook. It's so good. Like you jump right into the story with Lan's POV.
Yeah.
And we'll have to save some of this because we're actually going to do a New Spring episode.
Yeah, I was so excited about it. I was like, we must talk about this. I have so much to say.
But we're going to kind of revisit season 3 of the television show and talk about some things that maybe we didn't get to when we were covering episode by episode, especially our last episode that Laura and I did together. We were like, what comes next? Because we kind of ended it on, I think I had said more, Matt, Min, Nynaeve, and Elaine are headed back to Tar Valon, and you were like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
When I was watching it today, well, not even so much today, but when I was rewatching it as like a whole season where I'm not really taking notes and not trying to dissect things episode by episode, I actually noticed a lot more like fine detail stuff. And
yeah,
that was when I was like, oh shit. At the end of episode 8, I was like, oh my God, there are so many characters heading to Tar Valon that have no idea what's happening.
The shock, I feel like, I think Nynaeve is going to be especially interesting because she's not a big fan of the White Tower as it is.
Right.
But you move Swan Sanche out of that equation and you've got Elida in control. How much more aggressive and stubborn is Nynaeve going to be walking into this whole new situation? And I think Nynaeve likes her. She's someone that likes to be prepared, I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she doesn't like walking into these new situations. She's capable enough to do it in, certain aspects, but I just think this is going to disrupt her on a level that she won't be prepared for. And I'm really excited to see what her response is going to be like, because Matt, give or take, it's Matt, he's like
Right.
a cat always landing on his feet. He's always up to mischief, whatever.
Forever failing upwards.
Yes, yes. But Nynaeve, just that I feel like is a big question mark for me. So I feel like she's already going to be plotting something. And I also see this big question mark between Elaine and Elida, because Elaine has grown up with this woman. She knows Elida. And if we go to the books, she's had like tutelage under Elida. Elida's helped her prepare to become an Aes Sedai. And so I'm really curious to see how the show works that into this new dynamic of everything.
I think that that's like a really good point to bring up, is that when we start, we learn how Elida has like kind of mentored her into the White Tower. But from my perspective, I feel like it's going to be interesting to see how Elaine reckons with what's happened. Like, somebody who she's always been very close to has now like deposed the person who has charged them with finding the Black Aja. They're not going to know who to trust.
Right, because Swan has essentially, they're her hounds. She sent them off into the world to bring the Black Aja to heal. How is Elida going to be able to give this information to them and be like, no, 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 Swan Sanche, Black Aja? Like, that's what they charged her with.
I kind of wonder, and this is like definitely me creating this in my head, but I kind of wonder if there's going to be like a dramatic like arrest scene at the docks.
Ooh,
Maybe there are people there like watching the docks, watching for, Aes Sedai and stuff to come and go. Somebody sees them, the tower's alerted probably immediately. And then I could see like,
I could see,
yeah, like
I could see that
like an
definitely.
attempted arrest and the group resisting arrest and hopefully getting away. Because otherwise I feel like they'll be trapped.
Well, that's the thing. Even if they come back to the tower and are welcomed in under this new leadership and there's no imprisonment, no arrest, nothing like that, there has to be answers here. And I think Elaine, this might be something that we see between Nynaeve and Elaine, where it's like Elaine saying, "No, we can trust Elida, like it'll be okay," and Nynaeve being like, "Nope, she's a snake. She's a snaky snake. We're out of here." But I don't know, because also the Tracond brothers should be there, I guess,
They
maybe,
should be.
possibly.
They should be. That's where we last left them.
Right? So I feel like, I mean, they've got the set for Tarvalon, and this is, again, fingers crossed we get a season 4. But I just think that there's so much interesting things that can happen in Tarvalon. They've got the set built, it's a huge set. They're going to use it. And so I can't see there being just like we only are in Tarvalon when it's just getting like Elida's point of view. You
Right.
know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I feel like it's a location that they're going to want to use.
Definitely. Something else that I thought might happen is everybody gets back there, because I personally believe that Egwene's going to be coming back to the tower. We can talk about why I think that's going to happen later, but I think that her journey is going to bring her back to the tower. So what I could see happening is like, due to Elaine's position in Andor and, whatever, that Elaine won't have like a terrible time if she's back in the tower, but I could see like Nynaeve being like the big dog channeler now, that being an issue for Elida,
Right?
because we see, Nynaeve is unblocked, and so how's Elida gonna like how is she gonna come to terms with having a channeler underneath her who is like magnitudes of power above her. And that goes for
Right.
Egwene too.
I will say, without any spoilers, the dynamic between Egwene and Elida, chef's kiss. Probably the best character arc plot line for Egwene, period.
You know, something I think about is, and I'm saying this in like terms of the show, is Nynaeve and Egwene have been given like leagues of leeway.
Oh,
The
yeah.
way they
Yeah.
speak to people, like running off, doing what they want, this, that, and the other. And I get it because they're such powerful channelers. They're like, okay, well, we've got to make these concessions so that they don't go a different direction. But it'll be interesting to see how Elida treats that if they come in contact with her in Tar Valon. If they don't find out about what's happening until they like land on the docks or whatever.
Right. I'm actually thinking that Rand, Egwene, Moiraine, and the Aiel will stick together for the
Okay.
majority of next season.
So I have everybody in that group except for Egwene. Because my thought was Egwene has to become an actual Aes Sedai at some point. Right? Like she can't just okay, I feel like you're not saying anything, so you can't tell me. But I'm just gonna ramble this question off into the void
This
of
is a
people
good thing
listening.
we didn't do video today because you can't see my face.
So in my head, it's like, well, Egwene still has to become Aes Sedai. But then I keep thinking about something from the books that is like really nagging at me. And it's like this scene where Egwene's in the arches and she tells somebody that she became Aes Sedai without putting her hands on the oath rod. And so then I've got like that floating around in there. Ah, yeah.
We will
Yeah, we'll
see. We
see.
will see. I will say some of them, many of them, or maybe none of them, become full Aes Sedai. All, some, or none.
You know,
But
really, Moiraine could teach Egwene all of the Aes Sedai stuff. Because it's not so much like it's chosen to keep those things behind like paywalls, with the pay being trials. So, because we see a New Spring where Moraine like constantly reminds the reader that you don't even find out everything until you reach the Shaw. That's only reaching the Shaw is like phase 3 of training.
yeah, yeah. And I will say that if we're talking about Egwene right now, she's probably had more experience out in the world learning by doing than she would have ever received in the tower.
Oh, I agree.
Especially going back to season 2, her time as Damane for the Shan, at least in the books, this is an event where that time that has taken place in her, imprisonment elevates her channeling capabilities tenfold. So at this point, I think if she were to come back to the tower, she'd be running circles around everyone,
Yeah, she's
even full Aes Sedai.
she's the ultimate wilder now.
Yeah. Well, Egwene, so technically Nynaeve would be the only wilder because Egwene and Elaine have been like taught by
All
someone.
right. She's like part wilder, part trained Aes Sedai. Because she's learning from like all of these other people who are not necessarily linked to the tower. And then she's also learning from Moraine, who we all know is gonna do what she wants to do. Whatever Moraine,
Yeah.
like they say, the blues right wrongs. So I don't think Moraine is like as much about being by the book as you might see out of some of the other Ajas.
No, Moraine, especially in this show, like she's working with Lanfear in a way when we start out. So like Moraine skirts laws and like her line of right and wrong is more like a wave,
Right.
like she's neither on one side or the other. But I mean, I think that's one of the things that's so interesting about her as a character, especially in the show, because it's much more defined. Where in the books, you do get the idea, at least in my opinion, that in the books she's a little bit more aligned with the tower and how the
Yeah.
tower does things, but she does kind of step outside of that a little.
I think about her and like it makes me think about what's always said about Galad, how he'll do what he sees as right no matter what, and that's kind of what Moraine does too.
Yeah, but her line of right and wrong is
A lot
very
different than
like
his.
based on vibes alone.
Yeah.
Like Galad is the ultimate hall
Yes,
monitor.
he is.
Where Moraine is like, I go by my own book.
Rules aren't made for me.
I think too that's another thing about Nynaeve where, the show's version of Moraine, I think her Nynaeve and Moraine have a lot of that in common because Nynaeve is just she does what she wants in a way. And
I would
I don't know, I'm so excited to see what's in store for Nynaeve because in the books Nynaeve has a lot more things that she's doing at this point because in the books she's blocked, but she's got a workaround where she makes herself really angry, she can channel. So she hasn't been kind of flatlined for 2 seasons where she can't channel at all for the most part.
right.
And so I'm one of those readers where when I'm looking ahead, I really want to see big things for Nynaeve moving ahead just because she's my favorite character. So it is just kind of like a selfish reason where it's like I want to see her becoming more of a plot pusher instead of like in the sidecar riding along.
Yeah.
But same goes for Elaine. Elaine.
I so like at the beginning of the season, we're in a much different place with the two of them, like Elaine and Nynaeve, than we are when we get to the end. And their journey through this season has actually been one of my favorites. I'm not
You liked the Tanchico stuff.
I love the Tanchico stuff. I loved it. The sea folk and the windfinders and the veils and the extensions and, the songs. I loved all of it. And it was probably like, I'm not saying it was the most important story arc of the season, but I think it was one of the ones that I most like thoroughly enjoyed watching.
Yeah, I think there's a good amount of levity in these characters as well, just because you have such a mixed bag in terms of personalities. Like you've got Matt being Matt, him and Min have a fun dynamic, and
I'm
then it's kind of the
shipping a
same with,
relationship there.
yeah,
I didn't think I would at first, but after I watched it again, I was like, you know what? I do like them together.
there's a moment after Matt comes out of the twisted redstone doorframe and Min's giving him this like rudimentary CPR and he's like, if you wanted to kiss me, and I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
And then after he wakes up, there's like a brief moment where they're kind of like holding hands in a way, or at least like resting hands on each other. It feels very intimate, where I was like, maybe. I mean, his things that I don't, I just don't know. I don't know. I'm torn because I know what happens. I know who Min ends up with in the books, but.
I hope it's not Rand. Oh. Sorry.
but but it's just I don't know. I like their dynamic, but
Yeah.
I also don't want to sideline Min as a character who's just there as the plus one. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
I'm not like saying I necessarily want to ship them into this relationship right away because I feel like we're going to have more time with them as like the dynamic quirky duo because they kind of have this like same jokester like bouncing off one another. And
good
yeah, they
chemistry.
have really good chemistry. And for as much as the two of them get in trouble, they always manage to get out of it without any like one power assistance.
Right, right. And what I was saying is I didn't when I said I don't want to see her sidelined as like the plus one, like just as the romantic partner to someone. I'm saying that because in the book, her character arc and her plot lines, girl, I'm like massaging my temples right
I
now. Like we've got to find something better for men than what happens in the books. And I'm not saying I don't want her in a relationship with anyone. I'm just saying she give the woman some agency, give her some little oomph to her storyline, because it is kind of sad how the character just becomes in the books the like the woman behind the man type
Ah,
thing, where I'm just
okay.
like, it's just so, it's so boring. I'm sorry. I know a
No.
lot of people love men. I know a lot of men love men. Men love men because she is the woman behind the man, and she's very dedicated and she's a very loyal partner, but she has so much more to offer than that, in my opinion.
I have really enjoyed her a lot more in the show than I have of her parts that I've read so far in the books. But like in the show, I think she has more presence and more agency, like you were saying.
I do
And
too. I do
in the
too.
books, there's a much different feel to her. And granted, I haven't spent a whole lot of time with her in the books, so I'm not saying I'll feel this way forever, but as it stands right now at season 3 and me in book 3, I like Min better in the show, and I really hope to see her like continually play one of the important side character roles. I don't expect her to be moved up into like one of our main roles, but I really like what she brings to the group.
She's got, like, you can't kneecap a character like that because
Yeah.
she has one of the coolest, like, magical abilities, I guess.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I love the channeling. I love the visuals of it all. I love watching it. But Min's got something that nobody else has. And so why not use it and kind of bring that forward and let her become, the master of her own journey a little bit. Let her become a little bit more important to the plot and the story, instead of, just sitting on dudes' laps and stuff like that.
I definitely think we're going to see her and Matt continue their journey together next season, but something that I've noticed with Matt personally is that Matt seems to need, not necessarily need, but he has a really difficult internal struggle to overcome. And we've seen it like every season so far.
Yeah.
But like next season, I have to assume that that difficult struggle is going to be that he finds out that his mom is dead, his sisters can channel and are probably off in the world with Alana and Maxim, and his dad is on the lam from the law.
That's true.
Like, how is he going to manage all of these like really intense internal feelings when he already struggles with that kind of thing while he's in the midst of like the chaos of everything that's happening like in the politics of the world? And I
Right.
have to assume that Min will play like a role absolutely in keeping him afloat, like above water.
Yeah, similar to, I would say, Fael for Perrin.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And yeah, even if it's not a romantic relationship, I still think there's all of that is totally doable. I mean, even if they just stay friends and, become their own buddy cop force out in the world, I think they make a good team.
Yeah.
I want to say, like, when we're talking about this group of people, Min, Elaine, Matt, Nynaeve, where we end off with Elaine, I think her last lines of dialogue in the season are learning pretty much that her mother is under compulsion from one of the Forsaken
Yeah.
via Thom.
Okay.
And so I have to wonder, and, book goggles on, this has to become a bigger storyline for later. And I love this plot line from the books. It's not fun. Like, what's happening to Morghese, not cool, but I do think that this starts to kind of beef up a plot point that can involve so many people and give so many more people things to do, because now that Elaine knows about it, what's going to be her next plan of business?
I
How is she going to go about with this information?
I assumed that she will try to reach out to her mother about Gabriel. Whether she does that through like carrier pigeon or sending like a messenger or even going herself. I think she's going to try and do that. But I am really curious to see like how that works out. I know that they've had some experience with Forsaken, but I don't think that they've experienced a Forsaken like Ravine before. They've been dealing more with like, the Mogideon types and Lanfear, but with Ravine, he actually wants Elaine dead. And
Yeah.
so I haven't gotten any inclination that he's not serious about that.
No, because if I were Ravine, my goal would be running Andor. Behind the curtain, pulling the strings. Everyone thinks Morghese is in charge, but she's under compulsion, so he's running the show. The only person really standing in his way is Elaine, because hell, if he could even kill Morghese and work up some illusion to make people, work up his compulsion to make people think that she's still alive and well.
Right.
And so the only threat to him using Andor as he pleases is the daughter heir, the person who's next in line for the throne.
Can I
And so
throw in a secondary candidate for this, for the show?
please.
Thom Merrilin.
Aha.
I just thought about what if Thom goes to Andor?
Well, I'm not going to tell you what happens in the books, but you're not far off.
Okay. I kept thinking about it like after what I said and what as you were talking, and I was like, that's just a lot to accomplish in one season. There's got to be somebody else. And then I was like, oh my God, Thom, that's who.
Thom definitely has the lay of the land in Caemlyn and Andor. He knows the royal family. He is the most interesting man in the world.
He really is the most interesting
He's got
man
his
in
finger
the world
on the pulse
of everything.
Yeah.
And like Morghese in the show apparently seems to trust him. So he would actually make a really good candidate who could be like, hey girl, I actually know what's up and that's not what's happening.
Yeah, the really the only threat, I guess the only hurdle here is how do they get to Morghese? How do they break through? I mean, physically, how do they get to the castle? How do they get in front of Morghese? And if they were to achieve that, how are they going to break through the compulsion? Without her being like off with the head, off with their heads.
I had a couple ideas of how they get in, but then like the breaking through the compulsion is where they all run dry.
Yeah.
Because, we see like in the books, people dressing up as other things and moving about. So I was like, I guess they could like dress up as servants as long as it's not Elaine and maybe get in that way. But then still, how do you stop Ravine?
Gonna have to kill him, I guess. That's
a tall order.
Yeah. Especially if I'm trying not to spoil anything here. Okay. Elaine can't go back because it's going to be murder on sight for her. That's my feelings on this.
That's why I think it's Thom. I think he's a good choice to go to Andor because not only does Morghese know him, and not only does the timeline for him fit correctly, but he's kind of, like a badass too.
Definitely. You saw him throwing knives at Jean and the balefire rod. It's just Thom, man. He's just great. I have nothing bad to say about Thom.
Ooh, there was something else I wanted to talk about with Matt.
Tell me.
So like he has it's Eelfinn. That's who he saw, right?
Correct.
Okay, so he went and saw the Eelfinn. So obviously that gate's in Tanchico, which means the Eelfinn gate is in the tower.
Correct.
But he has that charm. So I don't know how this all ties in yet because I haven't really like constructed it out, but I am really hoping to see somebody try and channel at him and it not work to their dismay.
Yeah.
Because he's cloaked from like magical interference, right?
Yeah. Yes.
That's just something I want to see. I haven't like really thought about who's going to try and channel at him or anything, but I do happen to wonder if it's going to be in the White Tower since that seems to be where he's headed.
I think that would be a fun location.
Yeah.
Especially like knowing Matt, I could see him trying to make a break for it. Like I'm out, I'm getting out of the tower. Or I'm off, and someone trying to bar him from leaving via like, hardened air, whatever. And him just like walking right through it.
That would be, think about it. If you were that Aes Sedai, that would be crazy, mind-boggling.
And I mean, here's the thing though. Ooh. So a regular Aes Sedai couldn't do that. Like, well, yeah, as long as they're not using it as a weapon, possibly. But I could see maybe if someone was using a weave at him like as a weapon, it would be a good way to clue us in like who's that
Yeah.
other Black Aja member. I could see him like making a jump from the docks onto a moving boat. Very theatrical. What were you saying though?
Min swings in on a rope. I have to wonder if like him and Elida are gonna come face to face at some point, and if she's gonna recognize his charm.
Oh,
Because like they kind of imply in the show that she got a charm from the Aelfin.
correct. Well, okay. So I'll explain this. So when we see her in episode 8 and the flashback, and she's coming out of the Twisted Stone door frames, Alviarin says the Aelfin, not the Eelfin. And the Aelfin grant answers to questions. So she wouldn't have been given anything
Okay.
by the Aelfin. So if she's seen the Eelfin, the same one that Matt saw, and was given a gift, it had to have happened before, we haven't seen it yet. So it probably would have happened like before. Like she's even entwined with Morghese, I would guess.
Yeah.
There's something about the bracelet. There's a behind the scenes image of like the bracelet as a prop in one of the behind the scenes videos where it's labeled Eelfin bracelet. And so, like, it had to be a gift from
Ooh.
the Eelfin.
Okay, so
It had to be a
she's
gift from
all
them.
right, so she's seen both.
That's what I think.
Okay, so 10 years ago, she sees the Aelfin, which means she probably would have seen the Eelfin within that span of time.
But if they gave her the bracelet, it would
Oh
have
no,
been
that would have been
before
before.
the Morghese flashback because she's wearing it in episode 2, Cold Open, where she's crowning Morghese.
I wonder what the Eelfin gave her. Like if they gave her her variation of foretellings. Because she doesn't have full visions. We established that really early in the season. Like she does not have full visions. She has like a form of them, like a weaker form. But I wonder if that's what they gave her. Oh man, she's been all over the world going through gates.
Right? I don't know. I've really tried to wrap my mind around it. I've even came up with like loony theory, like wacky theories where like I know the visions that she has in the books, and if you're giving her those premonitions, those foretellings from the books, and they're coming from the Finn, or maybe even just the bracelet that the Finn gave to her, if that's another option. Either way, I think one of the coolest things about this character is that her number one problem is never being right with the interpretation. And she's
Yeah.
always close. She's always real close. But where like Min can like actually see it, and she's kind of like, like Min takes in a lot of things into account. She's like, I see it, it's gonna happen, but we don't know how. Like she sees Matt die, but she doesn't know that he's going to live afterwards. Elida is just, oh, like what a victim. Like she's got the visions. She just can't make heads or tails of things. She's so sure in her interpretations, but there's always a twist. And
Confidently incorrect.
yeah, and so like it's just one of these things where anything having to do with the Finn, anything having to do with Elida really allows the show to write in some really cool plot twists because I think some of the things that she could be wrong about could make for these holy crap moments where you pull the rug out from underneath the viewer. And I do like a little bit of spectacle in that way.
I do too.
I want to talk a little bit about Rand and the Aiel
Okay.
because we've heard enough in this season. Moiraines like, we gotta go to Tyr to get Calendor, and Rand is like, no, we're going to the Isle Waste. I think logically the show doing that makes a lot of sense. But if we are going to tier next season, Rand's got an army behind him.
Yeah.
If he's taken the stone of tier, that's going to be real fun to watch.
That's going to be a big deal. I definitely think he's headed to tier next season. I don't know if I can be convinced otherwise because right now in the books, I'm reading, about Moiraine and that group tracking Rand. I think it's east towards tier. And
Mm-hmm. You're going to get that before
yes,
you get it in the show.
right. So right now I feel like I'm reading parts of season 4 and watching book 4.
Yeah. You're probably going to get I'm not even going to tell you. I'll let you I'll let you enjoy it.
Okay, okay.
But I think you're about to get some Tom stuff where you're going to be like, "Oh my god, so that's what's happening next season on the show."
Ooh. I'm at like chapter 26 in the book. So
Okay.
rewatching the show and stuff this week, I was pretty excited because I was like, oh, buddy, I really know what's going on now. I was feeling, like Elida does.
Yeah. I think with Rand and the Aiel, now we finally get to see like Rand. We got to see him channel like big boy channeling.
Yeah.
We have the Aiel with him. There's two things that I feel like are a question mark in terms of like moving forward for Rand. First thing is he still doesn't have a teacher for channeling. And so they're going to have to work that in somehow. I don't know, if they'll do it next season, if we get it next season, but I feel like that is going to be like a major aspect of his storyline.
I would hope
And then
so.
secondly, this is kind of like not to do with Rand, but it does affect him, is we just saw the Shido pick up and leave. And they're like, what was it? Couladin was like, brothers. He didn't say brothers, but like, come forth, ride beyond the dragon wall, whatever he says. And so, like, in the show, the Shido are headed south into the, Westlands. And so what are the Shido going to be up to? Are they going to be one of the big problems that Rand has to deal with next season?
That's a really good point to bring up.
Because they're just going to be running off plundering and pillaging. I mean,
Yeah. Also, aren't they kind of like already working with the side of the shadow, or did they just not realize that's what they were doing?
I think at this point, with Lanfear giving Couladin his tattoos, you can't walk away from that.
Okay.
Like I think there's, like we saw it with Min and Ashamael. You don't get to say no to the side of the shadow. And so I think at this point, they're ripe for the picking.
Yeah, Couladin's going to disappoint her, and she's going to have a big reaction to that. I just don't see how Couladin couldn't disappoint her.
Right. But we also have Savannah.
Oh, yeah. I just kept thinking about Couladin because he comes across as such an idiot.
Yeah. Very true to his book character. I will say though, Savannah, like I've always enjoyed this character, but like I'm really excited to see what her story might look like if we get it.
Oh, yeah, because now we've got like, and I think like at season 4 is a good place for us to have like multiple factions of, bad guys, I'll say.
Right. We've got the Shido, we've got the White Cloaks. We haven't even touched on Perrin really. And we've got the Shan.
Yeah, and then we've got like Elida, who's a junior bad guy.
Yeah.
She's like a accidental one because she really thinks she's doing this for the right reasons, but she's really just getting in the way.
Yeah. I could see season 4 being so season 3 we end everything on kind of this. I've talked about this before, but season 3 mostly covers book 4, which is the Shadow Rising. And I think with season 3, they've really like lived up to that because in every location with every group of people, we see the Shadow Rising. We see the bad guys becoming more powerful. Leandrin wants to become a Forsaken. Her and Moghedien have got the male item. Elida's in charge. Perrin's with the White Cloaks, like imprisoned. We've got the Shido running amok. Rand is, off in this mental space of like, well, I Could he become a tyrant? Maybe. Like he's yelling at the Aiel for them to bow to him. Like it's very dark. So what I'm hoping is that season 4 sets the stage for resistance all across the map. Perrin and the White Cloaks, like we get resistance, we get that, I don't know, like that push from the plot line where it's like we're taking a stand, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. No, I
And I
definitely
want to,
want to see that.
yeah, within the White Tower, same thing, you know, with the Forsaken, with Ravine, with Mogideon, Leandrin. Like, I want to see all of this kind of come together in a push towards resistance and militarization in terms of like, okay, now we're starting to like gather armies. And I think for Perrin, that's one of the things where it's like, I feel like it's so needed because we've got that scene of Fail, Bane, and Chiad looking out into the distance at the White Cloak camps. And it's like, are they really just going to be a gang of 3? Or does the Two Rivers army come with them? Like, are we going to see militarization where it's like, you know, the people of the Two Rivers stand up and say, not today. You're not taking our Lord Golden Eyes. We're coming after him. I don't know. I don't know.
Ooh. So like when we talk about Perrin and the Two Rivers, I really want there to be a sort of rescue mission or some sort of showdown at dawn for him and Dane. I would
Yeah,
really like to see more than just Bane, Chiad, and Fail go to rescue him, but also like lower numbers could mean higher success. You know, we've
true.
got a lot going on there. Plus, does Aram stay to become blacksmith while Perrin becomes Lord of the Two Rivers?
Very good. Very good question.
I do hope so. I do hope so. I mean, Isla can stay too.
Hey, you know what I just thought, Laura?
What?
If we've got an army coming for Perrin, they're going to need weapons. They're going to need weapons to fight with. Who's going to make them? It could be Aram.
It could be. It very well could be. Perrin's going to be too busy governing to be blacksmith, even though he probably just wants to stay blacksmith.
Well, I mean, like, if there's a rescue attempt and Perrin's imprisoned and they've got, like, Fail, the Aiel, and a Two Rivers army coming for Perrin, maybe Aram comes with, like, as a part of the rescue operation. I don't know.
Well,
I know,
there's kind of been some stage set for this for Aram. We've
I feel like
seen,
it.
yeah,
Yeah.
we've seen that he feels conflicted about the way of the leaf. So that'll be really, I'm really curious to see what happens there. But I could also see him just like leaving with the Tinkerers again because
No, I don't think
I don't
so.
think
He
so,
can't.
but
It's like, you know how it is with you know how it is with cults. I'm not trying to
no,
call
no,
the
you're
way of the
right,
leaf
you're
a
right.
cult, but they're like you're
Girl,
buddy.
there's a lot of cults in this story. There's a
I
lot of
disown
cults.
you.
It's like War of the Cults at some point.
Really, when I'm thinking ahead to season 4, because we've got there's so much. I know you kind of know what the Black Tower is.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get into that, but like that has to happen next season. I feel like it
Oh,
has to.
okay, okay. I was thinking it would be a season 5 situation, but like you said, I know a little bit, but not enough to like really weigh in.
I feel like season 4 could end
Okay.
okay,
Black Tower ran.
mid mid-season finale like they did Ruidion. Episode 4 could be Stone of Tear.
Ooh, yeah.
Season finale could be the end of book 6, which is Dumai's Wells, which is just a oh buddy. Like it would be the biggest battle that we've seen yet in terms of pitched battle and magic battle. So
Okay.
like bigger than the battle for the Two Rivers and bigger than the Black Aja assault on the White Tower. Those combined, but like way more numbers.
I do expect to keep seeing larger and larger scale conflict.
I think, yeah.
I think that like the scale of conflict has made a lot of sense when you look at all 3 seasons together. We have some conflict here and there. They're very minor conflicts in season 1, and then we move into like bigger conflicts for season 2, and then even bigger at season 3 with like the Battle of the Two Rivers, and what is the place in the Waste called, like where all the clan chiefs and wise ones meet?
Oh, Al-Khair.
Yeah, and then we have the Al-Khair, and we have the showdown at the Panarch's Palace in Tanchico. And so we've got this, but now we're going to need to look to even bigger conflicts that keep rising in scale until we get out to the last battle.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's really how the books go too. I mean,
It seems the only logical way to go.
yeah, everything just gets bigger and more messy and more powerful and darker and like it's a lot. But I think, man, I'm looking at the clock right now. I feel like we could do a part 2 of this. But
We
I
haven't
just
really
think,
talked a whole lot about Alana and Maxim. We haven't done a whole lot of talking about Egwene. I mean, we did a little bit about Egwene.
yeah, I don't know. Maybe we can do both. Maybe we could start on New Spring next week and then
Yeah.
come back to the show if we want to.
We could.
I'll leave this in the hands of dear listeners. You tell us. You tell us where you want us to go, because we could probably combine these topics into one episode as well, like focus on New Spring for a little bit.
Before we like close this out, there were a couple things that like I don't think that I realized until after, because I read like 3 books and then came back to the rewatch. Like I didn't want to start reading until I had finished season 3 and then start reading the books. But the things that I noticed in season 3, like, and these are like super minute details, when Rand, Matt, and Perrin are hanging out at like that little pub bar, and the guy's like
Hmm.
drawing pictures of Matt with the horn. There's a moment when Rand leans in to look at what the artist has made, and it is literally his pay-per-view Vegas fight night above the skies of foam. And I was like,
Yes.
yes, I finally get it. And then
Sky Battle.
Sky Battle was there, and I love it. And then one other like really small thing that I'd never realized is this season's the first time we see an Aes Sedai wear an actual shawl.
Yes. In the flashback.
Yes.
Yes.
I was like, oh, that's okay. Those are the Shaws. And if I hadn't read it, it would not have clicked with me, because you don't constantly hear the phrase, the fringe Shaw of an Aes Sedai.
Right.
I'll be honest, like I know that there's some people that really love the books and aren't super happy about the show. And it's probably because I started watching it like before I read it, but I think they're both really enjoyable.
Yeah. What do you think the highlight of the show is, like from your point of view, doing the books afterwards? Like, what is the show improving on?
Oh, when you said what is the highlight of the show, I swear to you, I almost said Jai Jim just wants to be great. I think that some of the highlight of the show, if I'm really honest, is it cuts out
Please.
a lot of the Lord of the Rings behavior. I think the show might be a little harder for non-book readers to get into if we spent as much time like walking place to place as we do in the books.
Yeah, all of
And
those
yeah.
landscape shots, just like
I do love a good
cut
landscape
scenes.
shot. Don't get me wrong, but I don't know. I actually really, I kind of enjoy how they've like rearranged a lot of parts too. Because to me,
Yeah.
it doesn't not make sense. We're still getting to the same destination. We're just like taking a little bit different of a route there. So like how you were talking about how you weren't really able to enjoy that final scene with Swan until like your third watch. I was so shocked on the first watch that I think I just kind of blanked out for the rest of the episode. And then, like
My head was like buffering.
Right.
It was like
And not just that, but like you and I have watched these episodes a lot. And I'm not going to lie, I've probably watched each episode 5 or 6 times because, that's what it takes to really dissect things. But I've enjoyed it more and more each time. And I think that this last time where I watched it with like just real chill, trying to take in the whole thing as one piece, I think was
Mm-hmm.
my favorite watch through. I absolutely love this season. Nobody can convince me that it wasn't great
Yeah,
or
I think
gray.
gray or gray. Yeah, I'd agree. I think I don't know. I'm just more hype than ever for them to get that renewal. So we will see. We will see. If not, it is what it is. But also, everyone who stayed with us, all my regular, channel viewers, but also my YouTube members and my Patreon members, thank you so much for letting Laura and I do this. And it really helps making this possible. And also, if you're a fan of fantasy and you're a fan of sci fi, I'm sure we will be covering many more series and maybe even some other books besides The Wheel of Time. So if you're into that type of thing, let us know. What are you watching? What are you reading? Maybe, when there's more time off, when we want to take a little bit of a break from Wheel of Time, we'll cover other stuff as well. But yeah, Laura, any final words?
I mean, I'll be honest, one thing I really need next season is I need more Wheel of Time Enya music. And I'll also share one thing I need less of before we end, and that is I need less Trollocs wearing shoes. Hooves only, please.
Are they really wearing shoes?
Yes, it drives me nuts. Every time I see one on screen wearing shoes, I'm like, no, 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 you need hooves.
Okay, now I'm gonna have to rewatch just looking for Trolloc footwear.
Okay. I wonder who their designer is.